there's a seems to be a mentality going around that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that is not necessarily true. I think people really need to rethink that. They do that like with a lot of the foreign conflicts that's going on. They do it with the political parties fighting each other, and some of the pundits and commentators and people like that. Just because two people don't like each other doesn't mean one of them's your friend. Like, I'm not, I'm always for the people, okay? I can't say that I'm pro or against Russia or Ukraine, for example, because the citizens, for the most part, got nothing to do with it. Now, I feel a little bit different about Israel because a good amount of their populace is pretty messed up. But if they weren't, then I would be sort of neutral on that. And just because I understand the Palestinian resistance doesn't mean I think that, oh, well, they'd be my buddies just like this, you know. And I definitely understand Iran doing what they're doing. But I'm not going to pretend like me and them would be friends. I think people really need to think that through. And that's kind of related to some of the things that's going on around here. Sometimes, you know, on one hand, the enemy of your enemy is not necessarily your friend, but sometimes you are your own worst enemy, or at least people in your circle. Like a lot of what's going on in Tennessee, it should be obvious to a lot of the people in Tennessee, and I think there's a few people who are not catching on. Because they look at the enemy as Democrats or anybody that's not Republican. And it's like every bad thing that's happened to you in this state has been because of a Republican. Even if you're a Republican. The flock cameras and all that, the public surveillance, that is not Democrat. I'm not saying they're, you know, despite what they say, I wouldn't take too much into account that they're completely against it. I don't buy that. Again, I look at it like a duopoly. But with these down, you know, not too far from here, there's signs up about no more quarries. Well, who's building the quarries? It's not liberals. You know, who's building the data centers? It's not liberals. And if they ever do pass a law, a gun law, it's going to be the cops that's going to come get it, not liberals. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who passed it. It's the important thing is who's going to enforce it. Something you might want to think about. Sometimes you are your own worst enemy. And you got a bunch of right-wingers just fighting each other right now. You got the little idiot Tim Pool and maniac Alex Jones, and you know, Candace Owens has been doing some decent work, but I wouldn't trust her all that far. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey, they've done a lot of good work, but I'm not going to sit there and pretend like we would be in the same circles. Who knows? I mean, they might change. They might be more open-minded. They seem to have changed a little bit, softened up a little bit. But sometimes you're your own worst enemy. I know a lot of people personally that are. And they got this defense mechanism that kicks in and blames everybody else. And then it can never get better because these phantoms are the people that are making everything bad for them. Nothing is in their power because nothing is their fault. And that way you become your own worst enemy. You're almost stealthy, almost like a ninja or something like that. Because you are hurting you and you don't know you're hurting you. Your own worst enemy. So it takes some introspection. It takes some patience. Don't just jump on bandwagons. Go with what you believe, and if you can agree with somebody on something, follow them as long as you agree. And don't let them pull you into something you're not into. Because that's a lot of what happens also with the whole sheepdog thing. I've quoted people that otherwise I don't agree with, shared tweets and posts and things like that. And part of it is because people are more likely to listen to them. I'll use that as I need it, and I'll hope that they're on the right path. But you got to take it for what it's worth. And don't go all in on that. Stand on your beliefs. Don't think everybody's trying to form these little packs. You know, I'm not saying be a separatist. Like, there was something I saw not too long back. I won't say it was today. I think somebody was commenting about Candace Owens being on the Young Turks. And they're saying like that's a bad thing. And it's like, so you're just against people unifying. You're trying to separate people. You're being divisive. You just admitted it. So it's going to take knowing who your enemy is. Agree with people as much as you can. And just don't go all in. Don't act like, well, we agree on one or two things. This is my soulmate now. Don't do that. But at the same time, don't be like, oh, we disagree on one or two things. This is my mortal enemy. Let's be sober-minded about this. A lot of people can't do that. So again, the enemy of your enemy is not necessarily your friend. You know, I kind of, it's a little childish, but I kind of pitch the idea of, you know, you're running from Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers leaps out and grabs Jason. Michael Myers is not your friend. Just because they're fighting each other doesn't mean one of them is your friend. I think people, you know, as childish as that is, it's worth thinking about. You know, if you're being attacked by a wild animal and another wild animal attacks them, that's not your pet. They're fighting over you. But again, also know who your enemy is. You know, there was I can remember years ago, back when one of the last times, one of the last churches I ever went to, some woman stood up and was talking, just ranting and raving about some church that she went to. It was a different denomination than that one. And I'm sitting there listening, and I'm thinking, so everybody in here agrees about everything? Because she's going on and on about it, about they do this and they do that and they think this and they think that. And it's like, so everybody here agrees on everything? It's weird. So be aware in cases where you might be your own worst enemy. You might be holding you back. And it's kind of good news, because if it is, you can fix that. That's the easiest thing. That's the easiest enemy to defeat, is yourself. The only thing that makes it hard is when you don't know that you're your own worst enemy. Once you know it, it's a pretty quick knockout. You can fix that. You can't change how other people are. You can change how you are. Just a few things to think about. I don't want to get on a long rant. I'm trying to do some shorter videos on this. People more likely to make it to the end. Anyway, more later.